TED News Conference continues with former Cranston Mayor Allan Fung, Republican, now running for 2nd District Congress in Rhode Island. Mayor, this is your second visit within the past few months, but now we're down to how many? Did you just say 36 days as you and I
38 days, 38 but who's days. Counting, right, Gene?
You're right. 38 days, we're going to make a decision. Now, the commercials are flying. Yours are out there, his are out there, the mud is slinging, and primarily he's going after you. He says you're going to be a MAGA Republican. You've seen the commercials, not breaking you. You want breaking news. Do you want to push back on that? I assume you do.
Let me stop you right there, because even Nancy Pelosi's #2, Steny Hoyer, said yesterday at a political roundtable that I'm not extreme. You have Wendy Scheller from Brown University, who's here on Channel 10 quite often, you know, recognizing that no Donald Trump, you know, my policy positions aren't the extremes. And you even have Congressman Langevin and many other members of this federal delegation calling me a nice guy, Gene.
Yeah.
Yes, I am extremely nice, you know, and I'm proud to be part of hopefully taking this seat back on November 8th, making sure that, you know, we have a balanced voice down in Washington, D.C., that we do the right thing, bringing back common sense leadership, just like what I've done in Cranston. That's what I've been about. That's what I will be about down in Washington, D.C. for the voters of Cranston. I'm proud to get a lot of support and bring back that brand that's been missing, that New England Republicans. And even last night, I was up in Boston, Charlie Baker, you know, headlining an event for me. So that's the type of leadership I want to be.
Well, I don't expect Seth Magazine to pull his ads down just because Steny Hoyer, who, by the way, is running a congressional campaign committee, he wants to get more Democrats, but he handed you a gift. He said that you're formidable. He thinks Magazine is going to win, but you're not to be taken for granted, and you're not extreme. So what, he didn't get the memo? The Democrats weren't talking to each other?
Well, and that's the thing. You know the old adage, when you're behind, you'll do anything to try to win. You see that in sports, and you're seeing that on the television ads, and that's what Seth Magazine is doing right now.
How do I...
Blatantly lying about some of my positions, trying to, you know, distort, you know, where I stand on Social Security. Gene, I've got a mother that relies on Social Security. She's retired now. I know Seth Magazine's mom's not relying on that paycheck like my mom or millions of other families that are out there. You know, they are outright lying about my position on abortion. On and on, because they want to distract from the real issues that are hitting Rhode Islanders and every person across the country. Our economy and these high energy prices, you know, and everything else that I want to talk about, because that's what's on the minds of the voters. Okay.
How do I know he's behind? Do you have new numbers you want to share with me? How do I know that?
Gene, I can tell you, when you're coming out of the gate, just firing on Allan Fung, you know they're losing, because I can tell you right now, I am out there every single day talking to voters about what's on their minds. I know what my numbers say, and we will win on November 8th. I am out there talking about my plan to reduce this high inflationary cost. When we're talking about record 40-year highs at sitting at 8 to 9% inflation, what that means to people on Social Security, that to people that are on fixed incomes, they are not you know, keeping up with this high inflation. They're paying for it at the gas pumps, grocery prices, high prescription drug costs. And my plan is to lower these costs, make sure we watch our spending, make sure we become energy independent, make sure we get people back to work.
We'll be able to go, we'll go through a list of things. You're going to be with us next 2 segments. But here's what Magaziner is saying, that you're talking a very good game with reporters, but when you get there, you will vote for the next Republican majority leader, who will be Kevin McCarthy, who you had in a couple of weeks ago, and he will pressure you to go along with the agenda, which could include a national ban on abortion, because we've seen that raised in the Senate. So go ahead.
Oh, like I said before, blatant lie. Gene, I've been on your show, I've been on other television show, expressing my opposition to any national ban on abortion. I've been unequivocal, and I'm telling all of your listeners today, I stand by that statement, and I will continue to vote that way down in Washington, D.C. And when you're talking about, you know, where I stand on this issue, I've been clear. I'm not the extreme like Seth Magaziner, who would support unrestricted late-term abortions up until the last day. You know, rather, I'm with the majority of Rhode Islanders that want to preserve access for women to make that deep personal decision within timeframes like the European model, and reserve, you know, late-term abortions for life of the mother,
okay,
as well as, you know, rape or incest.
You're pro-choice with conditions.
Probably the best way to model me.
Okay. All right. Well, you've just made that clear. Now, let me play Seth Magaziner. He's been on a couple of different shows with me. Play cut number 2 to my director. Cut number 2 on the abortion issue with Seth Magaziner. Play it.
He was on the record opposing the Reproductive Privacy Act that we passed in Rhode Island 3 years ago to protect abortion rights. The record is that every time he has been asked if he would codify Roe v. Wade into federal law, he has declined to say that he would. The record is that he said he would vote for Kevin McCarthy to be Speaker of the House. Kevin McCarthy said that as Speaker, he will put forward a bill to do a national abortion ban. And the record is that Allan is a member of an organization that went all the way to the Supreme Court to try to overturn abortion rights in Rhode Island and nationally.
Work your way back. What is he referring to there at the end? You're a member of an organization?
Yeah. Again, a blatant outreach and lie, because what he's referring to is I'm a Catholic.
Yeah.
I think many people have known that. I belong to a local fraternal organization called the St. Thomas More Society, where a group of lawyers that put on, the biggest thing is the red mass.
Yes, I know the judge who's founded that.
Right.
Yeah.
We have no connection to that national St. Thomas More Society that he's talking about. So, you know, he doesn't do his homework, and that's the problem with Seth Magaziner. He'll say one thing, whatever he can, because he's behind, he knows it. He wants to grasp at any straws to try to paint me as some extremist, when even Nancy Pelosi's number 2 said yesterday, I'm not an extremist, especially on this issue. Yeah. You know, I stand where I stand. I won't support a national ban on abortion or even criminalize it. He's the extreme, and he wants to distract by talking about whether it's abortion or, you know, Social Security, which states where I stand on any of these positions, because he doesn't have a plan to fix our economy. He doesn't have an energy plan that's going to help, you know, make us energy independent and reduce some of these high prices that we're going to be coming into, especially coming into the winter. Gene, we're talking about, we just saw that rate increase on electricity by Rhode Island Energy, the PUC approved, that's going to bump on 50%. Mm-hmm. We are, you know, taking a look at gas prices increased by another 15%. I just topped off my tank. It wasn't empty. Yeah. I have home heating oil, just like many other Rhode Islanders and many other New Englanders, $800. And it's probably going to be more. And this is the challenge that we're all facing. That's why I'm talking about these issues at the doors, and it's resonating. Well, he wants to distract from everything else, use blatant lies because he knows he's behind, and, you know, distract from the real issues.
All right. He mentioned about 4 different points in that particular clip. Sure. You refuted 2 of them. The Moore Society, also Kevin McCarthy, if he does push that, you'll tell him outright no.
Correct.
And the other 2 were codifying.
Because the late-term abortions issue, you know, like I said before, I thought the state law went too far because it also not just codified Roe versus Wade, it made that took away the quick child statute. You know, I am not supportive of late-term abortions unless it's for the life of the mother, rape or incest. I've been clear and consistent on all that.
We talked about abortion. You've indicated you're not going down to cut Social Security because your mother's on Social Security. Is that correct?
My mother is retired and is dependent on her Social Security checks every month, just like many millions of other families across the country. And, you know, I know Seth Magaziner's mom probably and family isn't, you know, relying on that check like, you know, my mom is. I want to go down there and strengthen it, not take any cuts, you know, unlike the lies that he's, you know, pushing out there with his ads. Yeah,
here's the trouble sometimes, though. You're telling me this, and you say you're a moderate Republican, but a headline will hit, Lindsey Graham wants a national ban on abortion. And there have been other Republicans who talk about reforming Social Security. They hurt your efforts.
Gene, all I can do is be a voice for the people of the state of Rhode Island, and I'm letting people know what I believe in, how I would vote, and that's what I'll take down to Washington, D.C., because right now, We need a balance. We can't live on the extremes. My record as mayor has been working together across the aisle. I had Democratic councils, I've had Republican councils. Ultimately, we achieved a lot of the success turning that city from the brink of financial distress to one of the best cities to live because we work together doing the right things.
Yeah, well, listen, you have people in your party who can hurt you if you want to be a moderate, and Democrats have the same thing to the far left who are hurting them. But when you hear some of these Republicans, some of them are big names talking about, well, maybe we ought to privatize Social Security, maybe we ought to do this or do that. Or you hear Lindsey Graham say that just a couple of weeks ago. Do you feel that you have the moxie to pick up the phone and call your Republican leaders and say, would you stop this?
Yeah. Yes, because take a look at just that bill. Here's who I'd like to associate myself: common sense pragmatists, people working across the aisle. I'd like to go down there and be part of that problem solvers caucus. While Senator Graham might be putting forward that bill, one that I could be supportive is a fellow New Englander's bill, Senator Susan Collins, on that same issue. So that is what going down there, to Congress would mean to Rhode Islanders, working across the aisle, finding common sense, practical people who want to get this done, but most importantly, focus on the big priority issues of our economy, energy, and getting jobs back here to America.
Well, Larry Summers, who was Obama's top economic advisor, Treasury Secretary, says he says we threw too much money, too much free money under President Biden and the Congress who approved it. You've overheated the economy. Do you agree with that analysis?
Absolutely. And that's what I want to go down there, take the talents that I have as mayor, going through budgetary items. You've heard me talk about, Nancy Pelosi's $200 million Presidio Park project. That's what I'll be laser focused on, items like that. Or even, the ARPA dollars that came, out a couple of years ago. When you're talking about having cities and towns in the state have millions, billions of dollars just sitting on the sidelines and having 4 to 5 years to utilize it, that's too much dollars in the economy. I'd rather be strategic. Right. If we're going to invest dollars from the federal government, it should be for projects that are close to shovel ready, projects that we are, know what it's going to be about, instead of just throwing money to try to figure out how we're going to spend it.
Well, you mentioned Nancy Pelosi and her Presidio project. Now, a lot of what a congressperson goes to Washington is to bring the bacon back. So what are you going to bring us?
Well, targeted dollars to support our infrastructure. I want to make sure that we have investments into that supply chain and fix the infrastructure that would provide, a lot of the companies a great avenue to ship a lot of it. Yeah. Quonset Point's a prime example. I'd love what's going on, that Steve King, who heads up Quonset over there, what they're doing, the great robust economy that they're building up there. If we can fix up, that port, make sure we invest the targeted dollars in there, it's going to lead to more job growth, more manufacturers. That's what I want to see brought back to Rhode Island.
All right, lightning round with just a couple of minutes left. The president said if China grabs Taiwan, we're going in. Would you support that boots on the ground, a war with China?
Look, I do everything as far as supporting, providing military armaments, aid. We did it with Ukraine. I do that with Taiwan. But I'd stop short of sending our troops in harm's way, whether it's into Ukraine or even into Taiwan. Diplomatic solutions is what I prefer.
Isn't it an unfortunate fact of life that if the Chinese grab Taiwan, there's very little we could do? And isn't it unfortunate if Putin sets off a tactical nuclear weapon to grab more of Ukraine, there's very little we can do.
That's why
apart from sanctions and money and things like that.
Money, providing armaments, that's what we have to do, to support it. Because you're right about Taiwan. Taiwan isn't one country that America is relying upon. Our global economy, because of those microchips that they produce over there, is so reliant upon Taiwan. That's why, down in Congress, and even that CHIPS Act that passed, I am supportive of it, because we have to bring back a lot of that manufacturing here to our country. We've got to do a lot more here, produce a lot more here, so we're not reliant upon unstable regimes across the globe for our supply chain.
Did you take out a student loan?
Yes, I did.
You did. You pay it back?
Yes, I did.
Okay, now, sometimes Republicans can be the party of no. You've heard that. And already several governors in Republican states and other Republicans are suing the White House to stop the president's loan forgiveness. $10,000 if you make under a certain amount of money, another $10,000 on the Pell Grant. We'll cut $20,000 off the top. Do you support that?
No.
Do you support the president or these other Republicans who want to stop him?
No, I'll tell you who I support. This is a fairness issue. I do not support what the president did by executive order, which I believe he exceeded his power, to basically wipe away student loans the way he did. There's better ways to tackle this issue because it is a real issue that impacts students and families for now and into the future, because the way student loans are coming out, they're coming out with bigger than, ability for them to get mortgages, in the future, because they are getting a mortgage for, the price that they're paying for their education.
Just 2 minutes left. What would you do? What's your plan?
Interest rates. I'd focus on interest rates. I'd focus on why the cost of college education is so high, especially for certain types of degrees when we're going there, for some liberal arts degrees that you're never going to recoup and make that type of money to pay off that debt. But lastly, also, I wouldn't mind doubling the amount of Pell Grants, because if you're providing those dollars into the system, that means students don't have to borrow as much. That's my three-point plan.
Okay, but just quickly, I've only got about a minute left. So while the president says 10 off the top, another 10 if you got a Pell Grant, that's 20, you don't have to worry about. You would say, let me adjust interest rates, but you keep paying? Is that where you are? Now, you have to refine this at some point.
Yes, people should have skin in the game because it's a fairness issue. I've talked to a friend of mine who's in East Greenwich, elected Democrat. He's got a daughter at Boston College, daughter at Fairfield University. He's doing the right thing.
He's in for $120,000 a year.
Easily.
Yeah, and
but
he's probably not getting any help.
Correct.
Okay.
He took it. Instead of going and having the burden on them on higher interest rate, he took it out of his mortgage. So, for an individual like him, that's not fair. This has to be a overall comprehensive solution to the whole academic crisis and burden that's being placed on our students. We've got to get to the root cause of the problem.
All right, former Cranston Mayor Allan Fung, you continue to run 2nd District candidate on the Republican side for Rhode Island. You want to replace Jim Langerman. Thanks for coming in. I'm sure we'll see you again before we get to Election Day. 38 days as of our taping.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gene.
Thanks for coming in.